Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry, you're getting real life insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Renee Darko.
What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Renee Darko. Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. Got a special one for you. This is not an interview-based one, but I actually have a co-host for this show. It's my wife, Dr. Renee Volny-Darko. Now, some of you all may know her from her pre-med coaching business, Pre-Med Strategies, which is doing very well, right? But also she is the other half, the better half, some would say, of our getting popular now blog, Keeping Up with the Darkos, where we talk about paying off our debt, how to make our marriage work better, and kind of like all that goes with it, right? So, Renee, welcome to the show.
Hello, Dr. Darko.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're on here because this is going to be a really good one because people really want to know exactly how we did it. Right?
Yeah.
Like they don't want to know like, oh, we dreamt together and then we like figured out a way to pay it off. Like we are here to talk about, you know, the exact steps that we took to pay this debt off. Okay.
Actionable steps.
Absolutely. So look, before we get into all of that first, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us about where you're from, where you grew up, things like that.
So again, my name is Renee and I'm from Brooklyn, BK, and spent most of my childhood in Brooklyn, grew up in East New York, eventually went to college in Westchester, and after about 4 years later, went to medical school and met this lovely man right here.
This fine, handsome.
This fine tenderoni.
Jet magazine of the, Jet Mail magazine of the, I got to get my...
Peace.
There you go. And the rest was history, right?
Tenderoni.
So we started off as study partners, and then one thing led to another. Next, you know, you sweating me, and then
that's exactly how it happened.
You know, like how could I get with this guy who's so fine, right?
It's your show.
Exactly. Anything else, I'll just edit it out.
That's right.
But we got married in 2013, right? And we brought together some student loan debt. Now, we both went to the same med school together.
Yes.
Right? We didn't get any scholarships to go to that school. And we both got our MBAs also from the dual degree program.
Well, I had a couple of partial scholarships, but they weren't anything big at all.
Okay. So you graduated from undergrad with approximately how much?
About 200 plus.
No, from undergrad.
Undergrad? Oh, sorry, undergrad. Oh, I don't even remember. To tell you the truth, I don't even remember how much I graduated with. Maybe 50.
Okay.
Something.
All right. So I can't remember my undergrad debt either, but I know by the time I graduated from med school, I had about 220 or 240 in debt. You were somewhere.
That's what I was thinking about.
You were the same way. Okay. So then we go off and we do our residencies. You went and did your residency in OB, right?
In New Jersey.
You were all in everything below the waist, right?
Yeah. If it ain't below the waist, it ain't in my space. That's copyrighted.
I think you need to copyright that. You know what I'm saying? Or
trademark it.
Trademark is pending. And then I was doing my surgery residency, and I think it's pretty safe to say that we weren't making any realistic, any type of real significant payments
money
towards our student loans.
No.
So there was more than just a couple of times that I was doing forbearance on my loans. I don't know about
deferment.
You did deferment. Mm-hmm. So by the time I finished my training, which was in another 6 years, you did your training in about 4 years or so. By the time we got married, we both had about $330,000 of debt each.
Yeah, it really ballooned up.
I think you brought in the additional $2,000, right? So that's because we're actually not $660,000 in debt. We're $662,000 in debt.
$662,900.
Yeah, all that was all you.
Yeah, it's your show.
So look, we it's obvious we stated how much debt we had, and we got married. So let's talk a little bit about having solo debt versus married debt and what that meant to you specifically.
So having solo debt, basically before we got married, to me was like, okay, well, it's just my debt. And whatever debt I have is going to affect me. If I'm in deferment, forbearance, it's just going to affect me and whatever household I am the head of. And I was the head of my own household at one point because I was single. But when we got married, that obviously changed and your debt came into the picture. And then I had to think about, well, okay, if both of us have debt, how is that eventually going to affect our household, not just together, but also when we decide to start a family? So it was pretty stressful.
Right. And, we looked at things differently, right? We don't look at it as, okay, you come into the relationship with your debt and then I have my debt and then you worry about yours and then I worry about mine.
Right.
We decided to combine our debts and that's how we came up with that number.
Team
Darko, right? And then also one thing that we need to really lay down is our individual approach to finances, right?
Right.
You want to go first, ladies first, talk about your approach?
Ooh, ladies first, sure. So my approach to finances is pretty simple, at least to debt. I'm debt averse. I don't like debt. When I graduated from college, I literally had about maybe $500 worth of credit card debt, whereas my friends were graduating with like thousands of dollars of debt. And even at that $500, I was extremely stressed out and vowed that I would never own a credit card again, and I haven't. So that's my approach. And I'm also not a spender. If I don't have it in my bank account to spend, then I don't get it. And I tend not to get things that I just want. I'm not a very luxurious person. If you know me at all, you would definitely know that. So I'm very practical and I very rarely splurge.
And I'm probably similar to that. I had a credit card. I still actually have a credit card, the same credit card from college. And I just don't want to get rid of it because of obviously it's my long-standing credit history there. So if I got rid of it, I wonder if that would really affect my credit. But anyway, for me, I didn't bring in much debt from consumer debt. Right. I didn't splurge much. I had a car that was already paid off. And for us, basically, we just were not big spenders. The biggest item, obviously, for us really was our student loan debt.
Right.
And so let's talk about how we figured out that this debt was going to be a problem. Because, a lot of couples, they have a lot of debt. And they just kind of go on with their lives. Lifestyle creep occurs. They get a home, they have children, they get cars, and then the debt becomes almost like a pet where they're just kind of paying it off and it's not that big of a deal. But for us, so early into our marriage, why was it such a big deal for us?
Well, again, for me, it was a huge deal because of the effects that it was going to have on our marriage and our, potential family. I started realizing that we were paying more in our disability and life insurance than we were. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up. Yeah. Than we were for our student loan debt. So we were paying minimum payments for our student loan debt, and we were paying thousands more dollars for insurance. And I'm like, this is not benefiting us at all.
And needless to say, we got rid of that insurance and disability. That insurance product that we had was whole life insurance. Ugh. And then we had a disability insurance that was a little bit, way more expensive than it needed to be. And you, if I remember, you brought that into this relationship. You got me onto that, right?
Yeah, right. It's your show.
So what you trying to say?
I'm saying you wrong, bro. So, that is not how that happened.
All right, so let's set the record straight. So anybody who listens to me knows that I was on Dave Dennison's podcast, and we talked about how I discovered disability insurance, or how I bought disability insurance and life insurance in a club. Right?
Shots.
Kicking it in Miami, having a good time, and I met an insurance agent. And when I should have went the other way, I literally was drinking it up with him, and next thing you know,
5 shots later,
it's
sign on a dotted line.
I will put the show notes I will put the links to the that podcast episode in the show notes. But needless to say, you had a very expensive plan. I also had one. You, obviously being female, your disability premiums are way more than mine.
Correct. And I just want for the record, let the record show that I was referred to this gentleman who sold disability and life insurance by you.
Yeah, well, we already established that already.
I just want to set the record straight.
Okay, so obviously we were paying a high amount for our disability and life insurance. Such a large amount was going towards this plan and this product, but not enough was going towards our student loan debt. Right. So tell us about the thought that you had. I guess you can say it's an epiphany that you had.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, why do we have this expensive disability plan and then we can't even make a significant payment on our student loans?
Yeah. I mean, after a while, I just started thinking about benefits. Like, how is this benefiting us? To the point where I told the gentleman who sold us the plans that the disability in particular was so high, and I definitely wasn't going to get any benefit from it. As I got closer to retirement, for example, I told him when I got closer to retirement, I just chop off my hand so I could get paid for some of the money that I put into it. So, which is not ideal, I'll tell you, but that was I think my epiphany was that I realized that so much money was leaving our pockets and we just were not making a dent at all in our student loan debt.
And we also didn't have a plan on how to properly save.
Right.
We didn't have a plan on to how to get an emergency fund. We really didn't have a plan. We just got paid and then the money went out quickly.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's actually a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. Right. And we were heading towards disaster because we were living paycheck to paycheck, but didn't realize it at that moment.
Right.
And
that was scary.
Yeah, that was very scary. Yeah. So, a combination of us getting really educated, but also at the same time starting to be very realistic about what we bring in ensued later on, right? So we went to mint.com and we decided to get a little bit smarter with our finances. Let's put in computer and let's see exactly what our net worth was. And drum roll, please.
Negative.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you negative what, but it was negative hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, because you didn't bring in much savings.
Right.
I didn't bring in much savings, but obviously we brought in mad student loan debt.
Yeah.
And that was a very sobering moment, right? Because I think I remember I brought it up to you. I'm like, look at how much debt we have.
I do remember that. You're like, we broke.
We're broke. But I think, what's funny, I think, like you said, we were really honest with ourselves. That was really a sentinel point in our relationship because we admitted to ourselves we were broke.
Right.
And we didn't go ahead and say, okay, we're going to go buy a house though, even though we have a lot of debt and then we have a lot of income. That whole debt to income thing. We didn't do any of that stuff.
Right.
We just figured out, okay, something is going on in our household. It's, under duress. We need to do something about it. Right. Yeah. And what happened next?
So what happened next was after we finally admitted that we were broke. I think that's something, first of all, that not a lot of people would admit to themselves that they are broke, especially
too high net.
Right. Especially high income earners.
Right.
Like they don't want to say I'm broke. And nobody goes to medical school to be broke, right?
I didn't.
So
I didn't go to be rich, but
I didn't go to be broke.
I didn't think I was going to be broke.
Exactly.
As a joke.
Yeah. So what happened next was we decided that we were going to track where our money was going, because it was obviously going somewhere, but it wasn't going where we needed it. So we tracked our expenses 3 months back.
Right.
And we noticed, obviously, like we said, the life and disability insurance was a large portion of our money that was going out of the window. But then we also noticed like other trends. We noticed food. We were spending a lot on groceries, but also we were dining out. We were also noticing the swipe. So because we have joint accounts, you would swipe, I would swipe, you would swipe, I would swipe. And, like I said, we're not big spenders, but if you have two people swiping and nobody's communicating, then that leaves room for the overdraft.
Yeah, we had a couple of overdrafts, which were painful. But also at the same time, not only were we tracking, we were also educating ourselves at the same time. So we got, the Dave Ramsey education.
Right.
We found other blogs. We found other YouTube channels. We also found other podcasts.
Right.
So while we were tracking our expenses for about 3-4 months on an Excel sheet, we were getting as much knowledge as we could. And one of the biggest things that we understood or we figured out was that there are people who literally are able to pay off their homes, people who are able to pay off their student loans, like something that right now, 3 years later, is so simple. Back then, you remember how shocked I was? I was like, there are people who actually have their houses paid off,
right,
or they don't have any student loan, and large amounts are paid off.
Right.
It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole thing was a little eye-opening. I was like, how are people able to do this? But then as you hear the stories over and over and over, you realize, okay, this is actually doable.
Yeah. So we had to have a mindset change, right? I think that education and the expenses and realizing, we're living paycheck to paycheck mainly because of our own, not knowing, ignorance is going, we're not building anything together. That in combination with the education helped us to create, I think, a big mindset change.
Yeah.
And then it led us to making this pact. Do you want to talk about the pact?
So the pact that we made was that we would no longer create any more debt. So, we're coming off the Christmas season right now. So you've probably seen a lot of commercials about, I bought you a car for Christmas. And that would not fly in our household because we're not creating any more debt.
Not even a Tesla?
No.
Y'all help me out here. I want that Tesla, all right? Not even a used Tesla.
No.
I'm going to get me a Tesla. So that was huge, right? That was huge. We decided not to create any more debt, but that led us next to, in order to not create debt, we needed to always have a healthy emergency fund in the bank. That was another thing that was a big shocker to us. Is like, I didn't know people, save that much of money and then use that money to kind of pay for things in, basically things that people would usually use
a credit card
for, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty interesting. So initially we saved up about 3 months?
No. If you remember, you don't remember what happened?
What happened?
So the first time we saved for the emergency fund, we saved up about, I think it was like $2,000, maybe $3,000. I remember it was raining really, really hard like the week after, and I backed into that fire hydrant. And it basically wiped out most of the emergency fund. But at the same time, we had the money there. And so we were able to pay off, the body shop.
Yeah. We didn't, as Kanye West said, we didn't have to get Geico for that money.
That's right.
Money.
Yeah. So we saved a lot of money because we didn't use credit cards.
We used cash to pay for it.
Cash to pay for it, and we didn't have to report it, so our premium didn't go up.
Right. So once we decided to have a healthy emergency fund, the next step was budgeting. The B word, the thing that most people don't like to talk about.
Yep.
But budgeting for us, we looked at it differently. So it was difficult at first to, create a budget, but we ended up finding out that budgeting became very powerful.
Yeah.
Remember, it became almost liberating to us.
Yeah. It was really great because, so for me, and I think for you as well, it's like if I'm working hard to make a certain amount of money, I want to know exactly where my money is going, and I want to know that it's benefiting me. So that was the main thing. But when we first sat down to make our budget, it was difficult because it was like, okay, well, where should we put this money? Should we spend it here? Should we spend it there? Are we spending too much on this? So it was difficult. It really was.
Tell them about that grocery budget, how it started.
Oh, the $200 grocery budget.
Yo, but you got to admit, so we started off with $200 a month of groceries.
Budget, yeah.
Y'all, people are probably like, there's no way they stuck to that. We stuck to that.
We stuck to it for I want to say maybe 2.5 years. We stuck to $200 for groceries, period. That was it. And remember, the reason we were able to stick to $200 for groceries is because we had overspent so much previously the year before in groceries that the house was full of groceries, yet we were still buying more groceries that we weren't even consuming.
Yeah, yeah. And then not only that, with the budget helped us to really understand the power of our income, right? Like once we were able to really divvy up where money X goes, money Y goes, we were able to see, wow, we have so much more money left over. We can, put a double payment down. Not only are we just making minimum, we can put a double payment down.
Yeah, quadruple.
And then we're like, maybe we should put down more, right? So initially, once we did the budget, we had a plan of paying off our student loan debt in 15 years?
15 years.
So I was like, okay, we can we can do that. We thought we were going to have to pay it off in 30, but 15 years, I'm like, okay, we can do that, right? Mm-hmm. So I went to work. I remember I went to work thinking we got a budget. We're going to take this in 15 years. We got a healthy emergency fund. Let's do this. And then I come home from work one day. You had finished clinic early or something like that, or you must have had the day off or something like that. I come home early and you are smiling at me at the door.
And I'm like, babe, we could pay off our private loans, not our federal loans. We could pay off our private loans in a year.
So like literally like everything stopped. Imagine everything stopping and I'm like looking, she's looking at me, I'm looking at her. Then all of a sudden I'm looking like some other direction. Like I'm looking at the studio audience. Like what'd she say? Like where's the laugh track coming in? What are you talking about? We're going to pay off our private loans in 1 year.
You did not believe me.
Hell no, I didn't believe you.
The lesson is listen to your wife.
Here we go.
Yes, the lesson is listen
so
to your
look,
wife.
before we go down that rabbit hole, how did you come up with that? Like we can pay it off in a year, because I wasn't believing none of that until you showed me some numbers.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
So once we really started down the path of paying off our student loan debts, I got really laser focused, almost obsessed with, okay, how fast can we pay this off? Again, we were listening to Dave Ramsey and people were paying off, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt in short periods of time. And I was like, well, why can't we do that as well? We make enough to pay off this debt. We should be able to do it as well. So I ended up calling Sally Mae because I looked at our minimum payments and I knew we were paying double payments at one point, but I was like, I don't know how fast this double payment is going to actually help us pay off our debts. I need to do more math. So I called Sally Mae and I said, I need you to calculate what the minimum payment would be if we wanted to pay this entire thing off in a year. And the woman calculated it out for me and gave me the number.
Like she was like, hold on. And like, you can hear her like clickety clacking on the calculator.
Yep. She basically did that for me. And when we got the number, I showed it to Nee and I was like, this is the number we would have to pay every month. And what did you say?
I said, hell no, we can't do that. But you in essence showed me a table of how much it'll cost to pay it in 5 years, 3 years, and then 1 year.
Correct.
Obviously, 1 year was for us impossible, right?
That's what you said.
1 year was impossible for private loans or for
private loans.
Well,
private
yeah,
loans.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Initially. So I was like, whatever. So she showed me the numbers, and we literally went back to the budget, and that was another mind shift change. Because we were doing the budget where we would keep a healthy amount of savings for ourselves, and we weren't going to do anything with that money at that point. Mm-hmm. Because at this point, let you all know, we didn't know much about investing.
Right.
We didn't really know much about saving. So we said, well, we'll just save the money, and then we will kind of do double payments, and eventually our loans will be paid off quicker.
Right.
So once you came with those numbers, now we knew in our budget we had some money left over.
We had some cushion, yeah.
We had some cushion. So we said, okay, well, why don't we take some of that money and just put it more towards the student debt, right? The other thing that we did, which was really, really key, was what do we do with our life insurance and disability insurance?
Man, we sold them suckers off. Got rid of them. And, well, I shouldn't say got rid of them. We replaced them.
Yeah, we found more affordable versions. We actually went to an insurance broker.
Right.
Okay. And we're very happy with her. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, she sponsored this show.
She sponsors the show, yeah.
Right. So Set for Life Insurance, we went to her and we had a significant savings in our insurance both disability and life insurance. And then we also got the value back on the cash value. We got about 90% back.
Yeah, thankfully.
Right. And since that money was gone, and in essence, technically, we didn't really miss the money. When we got that money back, what did we do with that money?
We paid off some debt.
Yeah, we put a significant amount of that money towards our private loans. And long story short, we paid off our private loans
in 6 months. Listen to your wife.
So that was, how much was that?
That was $130,000. Well, $129,000 plus.
Dang, so we did it in 6 months.
In 6 months.
Dang.
Yeah.
And those loans were, interest rates were between like 5 and 10%.
Yeah.
So those were
I think 9.25, I think, was the highest. Yep.
Nothing to definitely laugh at. Those are some serious loans. So once we had that really big, easy win, or not easy, but that first big win, we said, whoa.
This is doable.
Because what ends up happening is you look at your account history on the website and you start to see, okay, if I make minimum payments, I'm still accruing interest, like a significant amount of interest, sometimes more interest than what I'm actually paying down.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then to just see that private loan was completely done, paid in full. Oh, we got amped off of that, right?
Right. We did. We got really hyped up.
But then I still wasn't a believer, right? Remember, we had the federal loans, and that was, so we had what? With the federal loans, we had about 500 and...
500, I think, and 30-something thousand left or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying, okay, maybe we can pay that off in like 10 years or something, right?
Yes, you did. And I remember we were at work, and I was waiting for you to get off work, and I just kept calculating. Now, it's important for you to understand that what I was calculating wasn't just the time that we could pay it off, but I was also comparing it to the time that the loan company wanted us to pay it off. And so basically from there, I got, well, we could probably pay it off in 3 years. And you said?
Hell no. I say hell no a lot.
You do?
And I looked at the studio audience. I was like, what's this girl talking about? She's tripping. Paying off $500,000 in 3 years? Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
You did. That one, I had to really win you over on that one.
Because I wanted my Tesla.
Right. But you didn't really believe that. My concern was when I calculated how much it was going to be for what the loan company wanted us to pay. I'm telling you, it worked out to over $1 million that we would have paid if we had stayed on the 300 minimum payments schedule.
Right. So paying the principal back plus the interest payments that would have accrued.
Yeah. And I am anti-interest when it comes to loans, and I am pro-interest when it comes to investments.
Right. So then, we just set forth to attack the debt. Right. We said we said a little over 3 years. Remember?
Yes.
We said about 4 years.
3.5 years.
4 years. We thought we can do it. And we went to work, y'all. So literally, we both we were employed at our positions, and then we also did locums on the side.
Right.
And we didn't just do regular locums. Like I was in Boise, Idaho. I was in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I was in a different portion of Pennsylvania. So there were significant moments where we were away from each other for about 2 weeks, for at least close to a year. So we would spend 2 weeks with each other, and then for another 2 weeks I'd be gone.
Yep.
Or you'd be gone for
a weekend.
A weekend.
I was doing weekends.
And everything that we got from locums, we just put towards our student loans.
Yep.
And literally the equivalent of like making a car note, or actually paying off a car every month. That was painful.
Yes.
But it was gratifying that we were making progress.
Yeah.
You see your student loan, like you go to the account history and you see, oh man, like, this how much
the principal actually went down
by a big amount, right?
No, not even by a big amount. That it actually went down, because when you pay those minimum payments, that principal ain't going down. Right,
absolutely. So ours were going down, and we really weren't accruing much interest after that, right?
Right.
After a certain portion, and then we just started playing games with the budget. Remember, we were like, okay, well, this month we were able to put 70% of our budget
that was your game more
towards
than mine.
Debt. Maybe next month we can get to like 77%.
Yeah.
80%. There was one point where we were consistently paying like over 80%. Those are some tough times.
80% of our paychecks basically was going to student loan debt.
Oh yeah.
That was some serious sacrifice.
Oh yeah. Now, some of you all may thinking, well, it's easy. Y'all didn't have kids or anything like that, because we did not have kids during a significant portion
Correct.
of paying off that student loan debt. But what say you, Renee, about that?
Well, I say we didn't have a kid, but it felt like we did, because we ended up doing IVF, multiple cycles of IVF. And as you know, IVF is extremely expensive. So
not covered under insurance.
It wasn't covered under our insurance. So we had to pay for it out of pocket. So we were working like crazy to pay off the student loan debt. But again, we had made the pact that we would not
create
any more debt, even though we were trying to start our family.
So by that time, though, we had set up such good habits that we knew we already had to pack. So we knew that, okay, if we're going to pay for this, it's going to have to be cash.
Right.
Or it's not going to be done, which is actually scary.
It is.
It's actually scary because, in essence, we let a money decision determine if we were going to have children or not. So that's actually a very dangerous game that we played.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
Thankfully,
it worked out.
Thankfully, we're two able-bodied people.
So we did about 3 rounds of IVF.
Yep.
And we were still
we were trying to do some cycles in between there also, so that was also expensive.
There was some frustrating times when I actually had to be, in other parts of the country, and some of the cycles weren't able to be done. So we lost some money there and so forth. But the cool thing is that we were not able, we did not have to use a credit card. We didn't have to do any loans or anything like that. So we're very thankful about that.
Yeah.
So that was huge. And we were still able to at least make some significant payments to our student loans during that time. Like, we never stopped.
Right. We didn't stop. No.
We didn't stop.
No, we didn't use that as a reason to stop paying off our student loans. Like, oh, well, we're paying for IVF and we just have to stop now. I think we kept in mind that it was important for us to continue on because of our why. We just did not want to live in debt for a long period
Preach
of time.
on it. Talk about that why.
Well, the why, so I write this in the blog post on Keeping Up with the Darkos, but our why basically was that we want to make decisions in our life that don't have anything to do with how much student loan debt we owe. So I don't want to be like, well, I have to take this job because I have to pay off my student loans. That's not what I went to med school to do. And that's just kind of generally speaking. But another thing I think was really important as an example was that I wanted to be able to, once we did have a child, to be able to stay home with him, especially in his infant years. And so luckily, we paid off our student loan debt and I'm able to do that.
And now we have an au pair. All right, that's a lie.
No, we don't have an au pair, unless you count me as the au pair. But I'm able to stay home most days. I still work now, but I'm only working 6 to 10 days out of the month.
Overall, though, there's not that burden to have to work because we have debt that we have to pay off, right?
Exactly.
So now that we have the debt out of our lives, we can now focus on building wealth, building a family, being more strategic with our money because our money belongs to us.
Right. That money is ours. Like, the last thing that I wanted was a bunch of interest payments to be going to a loan company. And like you said, there were months where you were paying so much more in interest than you were in principal. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
So now that we are on the other side of this, because let's be honest, there were some really tough times. Can you remember, tell me what was the lowest point in paying off your student loans? Do you remember? Well, we not paying off yours, but when we were paying off debt, what was the lowest point for you?
I think for me, the lowest point was, I think finally you were in Wisconsin and I called you because you had been going to Wisconsin every single month from January to July. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm single again. You're only here 2 weeks out of the month. And if you remember, I called you and I was like, you need to stop. You need to stop working as much as you're working because this is, this is not going to be good for our relationship. Like, we need to That was my lowest point, I think.
I think that after coming out from this, we've come out stronger, though.
Mm-hmm,
right?
absolutely,
Because we had some low points, but there were plenty of times where when I was down, you picked me up. When you were down, I picked you up. And if we can accomplish this, we can accomplish anything.
Right.
I can get a Tesla, right? No?
What was your lowest point? Let's pivot.
All right, so that's my interview technique. So this is my show. So my lowest point definitely was, do you remember when you got sick? You were at a board review course.
Oh my God, yes.
So my wife was at a board review course in Minnesota.
No, in North Carolina.
Okay. And you had some type of allergic reaction.
Yes.
You had to use your EpiPen.
Yep.
And as y'all know from, obviously physiology, your heart rate was going really fast.
Yes.
You were having a hard time breathing.
Yes. And I had to get on a plane.
You took the plane, having a hard time breathing on the plane. You got off the plane and
I thought I was literally having a heart attack.
Right. And then you got to the airport, and I can't remember, did I meet you at the airport?
You met me at the airport.
I met you at the airport.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I could not. Now, the airport is about 45 minutes from our home. Mm-hmm. So I met you at the airport to see how you're doing, but I didn't go home with you.
Correct.
I had to actually go on to another portion of Pennsylvania and go work because that next morning, I was about 3 hours from you. I had to go and work. And as you all know who do locums, you can't cancel, or if you cancel, you're going to have a significant steep penalty if you cancel. So you had to drive from the airport 45 minutes to the hospital, our hospital. I remember when I was driving, I kept calling to see how you were doing. And I had to call one of our ER friends to see if they can fast track you through. And then your cell phone doesn't work in that ER.
Yep.
And for me, that was the lowest point because, literally money was affecting how our relationship was. I couldn't even follow you to that point.
Right.
Actually, I never even told you this, that this is something I never told you. But that was the lowest point for me because now I'm driving additional 2 hours, 3 hours. And I'm like, I wonder, I don't even know how my wife is doing.
Right.
Like you literally could have died.
Yeah.
Right? They did a PE protocol on you.
Oh my God.
Your
My
D-dimers. Was your D-dimers like 7,000 or something?
8,000.
Right? But luckily you didn't have a PE.
Correct.
And that was my lowest point. Yeah. I was like, man, like, is this really worth it? Is this really worth it? And I think to some regret, I don't know if that was really that necessary to do that. If I had a chance to do that over again, I think I would have canceled.
Right.
I think.
Well, but I also kept reassuring you.
Yeah.
You're like, you have a PE. I was like, I don't have a PE.
Right. So that is those were low points for us, but we got through it. We picked each other up, and I still think we came out really stronger from it.
Yeah.
And
fist bump
right there, boom. So like, what's next for us now?
Ooh, what is next? Oh my goodness, I don't know. What do you think is next?
Well, right now the biggest thing is obviously, just trying to build wealth. Like we are behind, right?
Yes,
we're behind.
Yes, this is true.
Like we have an okay savings account, but I think in terms of investments, in terms of just in general savings, like we have some catching up to do. But we now know, like, look, if we can spend 3 years putting 80% of our salary or even higher towards student loan debt, we damn sure can put 80% of our loan or 80% of our, why am I even mentioning loans? Loans doesn't even,
they don't exist.
They don't
anymore.
exist,
What's
right?
a loan?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, me neither.
But 80% of our salary, 80% of what we bring in now can go towards savings.
Right.
More than 3 years in a row, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
We can catch up really quickly, right? So that's really big for us right now. And then the other thing now is because we don't have much student loan debt anymore, we don't have any debt at all. Like we are free.
No, we do have some debt.
No, I said student loan debt.
Okay,
right.
Gotcha,
We still have a rental in
a rental property in
Atlanta, Georgia. We wrote about that in the blog. I'll probably leave that link in the show note also. But we're free to kind of do what we want to do in terms of business, right?
Right.
Like you've been able to really take off with your pre-med coaching business.
Yes.
I'm really, I feel very strongly and passionately about this podcast. And then obviously we are running the
locums company,
the locum tenens company, Equal Access Health also.
Yeah.
So, And then also now, we can be closer to family. We've been able to theme our years. So 2016 was the year of failure where we gave 0 Fs. We didn't care. We were just going to start whatever we wanted to start. And if we
whatever
fail, happened.
Yeah.
And then the year after that was
Year of family.
So we tried to get a little bit closer to family and spend more time with family. And then we also started our own family.
That's right.
And
then, just so that you guys know, this little guy came for free.
Oh, yeah. He came spontaneously. He definitely is a Darko.
That's right. He was like, what, y'all paying to have kids? Something wrong with that.
And what did I say when that happened? I was like, yo, I want my money back from we spent all this money on this IVF. Hey, you know what I'm saying? It's Tesla right there.
He owes us money.
Who? Our child?
Yeah, our son. He owes us money.
Yeah. Show him the receipts when he gets to a certain age.
That's right.
But now this year, 2018, is the year of unity. Right? And our best Rick James, unity. Right? So this is the year that we're going to work on our businesses together, right? We're going to get stronger in our relationship, right?
Yep.
And we're going to just take over, and we're just going to go at it as one team, as one, as one.
One love.
One love. So everyone, I just want to say thank you very much for listening to this episode. This is literally our journey very quickly through our student loan debt. I really hope you all got some really relatable, actionable items from this. And what do you think, Renee? This was fun, right?
Yeah, it was. It was kind of fun. Maybe I should be on your show every
slow down. Slow your roll. Slow your roll. Slow your roll. This is me.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's your show.
It's my show. But listen, I don't know. What do y'all think? Write to me. My email is docsotb@gmail.com. Twitter is @docsotb, as well as you can come to Facebook. Don't forget, there's a Facebook group for Docs Outside the Box. What's it called?
Docs Outside the Box Nation.
So it's a Facebook group where literally you can talk about anything related to being a doc outside the box. If you're wanting to be a doc outside the box and you just want to have the conversation, but where you work, who you work with, who you're around, you don't feel comfortable, this is the Facebook group that you want to be a part of. If you want to learn how to take significant steps towards doing anything that may be related to doing something a little non-traditional, this is the place for you. If you want to get help from people, this is the place that you want to be. We're going to be live streaming. We're going to be dropping gems. It's really something that I'm very, very excited about. And obviously I started it with the help of my lovely wife. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Do you want to say any last parting words before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me to the show. This was really, really fun. And I hope that your audience, got very good information from us on how they could also pay off their student loan debt. I think that doctors in particular think that they have to basically die with their student loan debts, and you don't have to. You really don't. So, hopefully you got something from this. Well
said. Well, if you really enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, and you could also subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, as well as Stitcher Radio, and always be sure to share this with someone who you think will learn from this. So look, I'm going to catch you on the next episode, but before I jet, just remember one thing. We only got one life. Let's make it count and live outside the box. Peace.